All right, let's dive into a framework that completely flips the script on leadership, on strategy, and especially on those moments where everything seems to go wrong. What if your biggest mistakes weren't actually liabilities? What if they were your secret weapon for a major breakthrough? You know the question, right? It's the classic interview curveball, and we've all learned the right way to answer it. Frame it as a neat little lesson. But here's the thing. What if that's just completely wrong? What if mistakes aren't just things we need to recover from, but are actually the raw material for our most brilliant work? So let's talk about the problem we're trying to solve. I call it the prison of perfection. It's this culture we see in so many organizations where the strategic plan is treated like it's carved in stone. Any deviation, any little mistake feels like a catastrophic failure. And that fear, it builds walls around us, locking out any chance for real, genuine originality. Really, it boils down to two completely different mindsets. On one side, you have the plan is perfect mindset. Here, a mistake is just an error, something you need to fix to get back on track. And yeah, that leads to predictable results, but often pretty boring ones. But then there's the other side. The plan is a hypothesis. With this mindset, a mistake isn't a failure. It's just new data, and that changes everything. This is where the idea of the beautiful mistake comes in. See, when we're clinging to that original plan for dear life, we're trapped. The beautiful mistake is that thing, that totally unexpected event, that just shatters the plan. It forces us, literally forces us, to find a completely different path forward. And you know what? That new path is almost always way more interesting.
Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but how do you actually do it? Well, that brings us to the framework itself. This is a way to start systematically looking at problems, not as setbacks, but as advantages just waiting for you to find them.
So let's get really clear on what we mean by a beautiful mistake. This isn't just any old slip-up, okay? It's a very specific kind of event. It's something that happens that makes your original plan totally, completely impossible. But in doing so, it opens up a new path, a new idea you literally could not have seen before.
I want you to picture a spectrum for how you can react to a mistake. Over on one end, you've got correct the mistake. This is the default, right? You just force the project back on its original track to get that predictable outcome. But way over on the other end, you have embrace the mistake. This is where you lean into the disruption. You use it to unlock a level of creativity and originality that was never, ever in the original plan. And as a leader, your job is to pull your team toward that embrace side.
The framework really breaks down into three core ideas. First, you've got the happy accident. Think of this as a small, unexpected thing, like a bug in some code that accidentally creates a really cool new feature. Then there's the forcing constraint. This is bigger, a major shock to the system, like your budget getting slashed in half. And finally, the creative pivot. That's your response. It's how you take that accident or that constraint and use it as a brand new starting point. Okay, let's make this real with a story. So, imagine an architect gets hired to design a new winery in Spain. The plan is exactly what you'd expect: simple, modern, elegant. Basically, a beautiful, clean box set down on this gorgeous landscape. Very logical, very rational. And then, the mistake. And it's a big one. It turns out the survey of the land was wrong. The ground is totally unstable. Building that simple box is now going to be ridiculously expensive. The budget is blown. The entire project is right on the edge of collapsing. This, my friends, is a classic forcing constraint. But here's the magic moment. The architect didn't try to fix the ground. She completely embraced the constraint. She asked, what if the building doesn't need a stable foundation at all? And she designed this incredible structure that sort of floats above the ground like a wave, a ribbon of concrete that became part of the landscape itself. The mistake didn't just change the design, it gave the project its soul. So that's a fantastic story. But the real question is, how do we as leaders actually create the conditions for these kinds of brilliant pivots inside our own teams and companies? Let's get really practical here. It starts with how you lead. First, and this is non-negotiable, you have to stop punishing failure. It has to be safe for people to mess up and talk about it. Second, become a constraint artist. Start treating constraints not as blockers, but as the medium for your creativity. Third, rebrand mistakes. Call them unplanned experiments and ask, okay, what did we just learn from that? And finally, learn to love a crisis. Because when things are chaotic, that's when people are most open to a truly radical, game-changing idea. Now, if you want to make this tangible, you need to measure it. I want you to track a new metric, your mistake to innovation rate. Just ask this simple question. Of all our recent breakthroughs, what percentage can we trace directly back to an initial screw-up, a failed plan, or a pivot we were forced to make? That number will tell you everything you need to know about your culture.
Now, a few words of warning because there are some common traps here. First, this is not an excuse for sloppiness. This is about how you respond to the unexpected within a well-run process. Second, if you don't have psychological safety, this whole thing just turns into a toxic blame game, so that's a prerequisite. And most importantly, not every mistake is a beautiful one. Part of the wisdom here is knowing which accidents are just accidents and which ones are opportunities.
Okay, so let's boil all of this down to one simple, powerful thing you can do on Monday morning with your team. The next time something goes wrong, the next time a project veers off course, fight every instinct in your body that wants you to ask the obvious question. And instead, ask this: how can we use it? That's the question. How can we use this unexpected event? What new door just swung open? What possibility just revealed itself that we couldn't see yesterday? I'm telling you, that one question can shift an entire team's culture from one of fear and correction to one of creativity and discovery. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. What's that one impossible constraint you're facing right now? That thing that feels like a huge roadblock? Is it really just a problem you have to solve? Or could it be your next beautiful mistake, just waiting for you to turn it into your greatest advantage?